February 24th, 2022, 4 a.m. Kharkiv, Ukraine. Russian invasion begins. Kharkiv, second largest city. Population 1.4 million. Location 40 kilometers from Russian border. Closer to Moscow than Kiev. Surrounded three sides. North, east, south, west. Only escape route. Russian forces overwhelming. Converging from multiple directions. Should capture within hours. Maximum days. City's fall seemed inevitable. Strategic necessity for Russia. Industrial center. Transportation hub. Cultural significance. Capture Kharkiv. Threaten eastern Ukraine. Complete northern encirclement. Forced capitulation. Every analyst predicted. Every model calculated. Kharkiv falls first. Quickly. Inevitably. Against these predictions, Ukrainian defenders, regular army, territorial defense, National Guard, volunteers, total several thousand initially. Against Russian force, estimated 30,000 plus. 5 to 1 disadvantage. Geography worse. City nearly surrounded. Reinforcement difficult. Resupply complicated. Escape impossible for civilians. Everything favored Russia. Everything predicted Ukrainian collapse. Didn't happen. Week 1, Kharkiv held. Week 2, still holding. Month 1, impossibly resisting. Month 2, still Ukrainian. By May, Russian forces withdrawn from Kharkiv axis. Not advancing. Retreating. City never fell. Despite location. Despite odds. Despite predictions. This is Kharkiv. This is how second largest city defied everything. Geography. Mathematics. Expectations. All proven wrong. Through defenders who refused to accept inevitable. Through population that stayed and resisted. Through city that became symbol of Ukrainian resistance, of Russian failure, of modern urban warfare where determination matters more than proximity to enemy border. The battle develops. First hours, Russian forces cross border, multiple directions. Artillery bombardment begins. Civilian areas struck. Residential districts. Historical center. Everything. Defenders respond. From prepared positions. From buildings. From streets. Ukrainian artillery fires back. Slows advance. Doesn't stop it. Russian forces enter suburbs. Northern outskirts. Eastern approaches. Fighting begins. Building by building. Street by street. Russian forces expect quick collapse. Encounter fierce resistance. Every building contested. Every street defended. Urban warfare negates numerical advantage. Makes every advance costly. First day, Russian forces control suburbs. City center holds. Defenders hold. First week, battle intensifies. Russian forces assault repeatedly. Artillery pounds constantly. Defenders hold lines. Inflict casualties. Prevent breakthrough. Russian advance stalls. Expected hours becomes days. Days become weeks. Still no capture. International observers shocked. How is Kharkiv holding? Geography says impossible. Numbers say impossible. Reality says possible. Defenders prove possible. Through fighting. Through refusing to break. Through making every Russian advance catastrophically expensive. At 11:47 p.m. May 14th, 80 days after invasion began, Ukrainian forces launch counteroffensive. Push Russian forces back. From Kharkiv's outskirts. From surrounding areas. By late May, Russian forces withdrawn. 40 plus kilometers from city. No longer threatening. No longer besieging. Defeated. Not completely. Not destroyed. But pushed back. City liberated effectively. Never captured. Never even surrounded completely. Held 80 days. Against impossible odds. Against overwhelming force. Against geography that should have doomed it. Cost was terrible. Thousands dead. Civilians. Soldiers. Both. Infrastructure destroyed. Historical buildings ruined. Residential areas flattened. Population displaced. Many fled. many stayed. Both groups heroes. Those who fought, those who endured, all contributed to impossible defense, to successful resistance, to proving predictions wrong. Kharkiv survived through defenders' sacrifice, through population's endurance, through refusing to accept inevitable. This is Kharkiv. This is how cities survive impossible positions. Through determination, through urban warfare's advantages, through making enemy pay unsustainable price, despite geography, despite numbers, despite everything. This is MilFront. And what happened at Kharkiv wasn't miracle or accident. It was successful urban defense against overwhelming odds through exploiting every advantage of urban warfare and defender determination. Where 40-kilometer proximity to enemy border became meaningless against urban terrain complexity. Where numerical disadvantage was compensated by defensive advantages and local knowledge. Where expected collapse became sustained resistance, then successful defense. Where geography's curse became defenders' opportunity through forcing enemy into urban warfare's grinding hell. The question isn't whether Kharkiv was threatened. Obviously was. Question is, how city 40 kilometers from border survived 80 days against overwhelming force attempting encirclement. What advantages enabled impossible defense? And what Kharkiv reveals about modern urban warfare, where proximity to enemy territory means nothing when defenders use urban environment expertly and refuse to surrender despite everything. Official Russian statements about Kharkiv. Confident initially. Kharkiv being liberated. Operation proceeding. Week 2. Silence increasing. No updates. No progress claims. Month 2. Defensive claims. Repelling Ukrainian attacks. Admission through omission. Can't capture city. Can't even claim progress. Eventually withdrawal announcements. Framed as regrouping. Prioritizing Donbas. Reality. Defeated at Kharkiv. Unable to capture. Unable to hold positions. Forced to withdraw. Statements couldn't hide this. Timeline proved failure. Russian forces 40 kilometers from border. Should have captured immediately. Took 80 days. Failed anyway. Statements were propaganda. Reality was defeat. Ukrainian statements defiant throughout. Kharkiv stands. Defenders hold. Daily updates. Acknowledging difficulty. Celebrating resistance. Never false optimism. Just reality. City resisting. Population enduring. Defenders fighting. All accurately reported. May counteroffensive. Triumphant. Kharkiv liberated. Enemy pushed back. Celebrating victory earned. Through 80 days resistance. Through impossible defense. Through refusing to accept predicted collapse. Ukrainian statements reflected reality. Kharkiv held. Against everything. Through everything. Successfully. Stay with me. Because the detail that explains Kharkiv's survival, how held despite geography, is going to show you that urban warfare heavily favors defenders when defenders know terrain and fight desperately. Kharkiv defenders knew every street, every building, every approach, used this knowledge constantly. Russian forces knew maps, not terrain, not buildings, not approaches. This asymmetry mattered decisively. Additionally, urban environment negates many military advantages. Numbers matter less. Armor matters less. Artillery less discriminating. Defenders can fight from positions. Disappear when pressed. Reappear elsewhere. Urban warfare's reality. Kharkiv defenders exploited perfectly. Made every Russian advance catastrophically expensive. Geography said Kharkiv should fall. Urban warfare said Kharkiv could hold. Urban warfare proved correct. Through defenders using every advantage. Through terrain multiplying capability. Through making proximity to border irrelevant. When urban warfare done correctly. Kharkiv proved this. 80 days. Against overwhelming odds. Geography overcome. Through urban warfare. Through determination. Through expertise. Let's establish what Kharkiv defense actually was, how succeeded against impossible odds, why mattered strategically, Kharkiv's impossible geography, second largest city, 1.4 million people, 40 kilometers from Russian border, surrounded three sides, north border, east border, south vulnerable, west only escape, worst possible position strategically. Every military principle says indefensible. Should evacuate. Should retreat. Should abandon. Ukrainian command decided differently. Defend. Hold. Resist. Against geography. Against odds. Against predictions. This decision proved correct. Through execution. Through determination. Through urban warfare's advantages overcoming geographic disadvantages. Defending force composition, Ukrainian Regular Army, 92nd Mechanized Brigade, others, several thousand total, territorial defense, volunteers, civilians turned soldiers, National Guard, police, everyone fighting, combined several thousand defenders initially, against Russian force 30,000 plus, 5-to-1 disadvantage, worsening potentially. Russian forces could reinforce easily. Border 40 kilometers away. Ukrainian forces isolated relatively. Reinforcement difficult. Resupply complicated. Every calculation favored Russia. Except calculation didn't include urban warfare's reality. Didn't include defender determination. Didn't include terrain knowledge. These factors changed everything. Russian assault strategy had multiple axes, converging, northern approaches from border, eastern approaches from border, southern hook attempting encirclement, overwhelming force, artillery preparation, airstrikes, everything, standard combined arms, should work, against urban defense, against determined defenders, against local knowledge, didn't work, urban environment absorbed artillery, made airstrikes indiscriminate, made armor vulnerable, made numbers less relevant, made every advance costly. Russian strategy assumed quick collapse, didn't account for sustained resistance, for urban warfare's grinding nature, for defenders' determination. Strategy failed, despite overwhelming force, despite geographic advantages, despite everything theoretically favoring Russia. 80 days of urban warfare. Weeks 1 to 2, initial assault. Russian forces enter suburbs. Heavy fighting. Defenders hold city center. Every building contested. Artillery pounds constantly. Defenders survive. Keep fighting. Russian advance slows. Expected hours becomes weeks. Weeks 3 to 6, grinding battle. Russian forces control suburbs mostly. Can't break into city center. Every attempt repelled. Every advance costs catastrophically. Stalemate develops, favoring defenders. Every day holding is victory. Every Russian casualty matters. Weeks 7 to 12, Ukrainian resilience. Russian exhaustion. Defenders still holding. Population enduring. City functioning partially. Never captured. Never surrendered. A counteroffensive. Ukrainian forces push back. Russian forces retreat. 40-plus kilometers withdrawal. Kharkiv liberated effectively. Defense succeeded against impossible odds. Through 80 days. Successfully. Now the analysis. Why Kharkiv held. What this means. Urban warfare advantages. Cities favor defenders enormously. Every building fortress. Every street battlefield. Attackers must clear systematically. Expose themselves constantly. Take casualties continuously. Defenders know terrain. Fight from positions. Withdraw safely. Repeat. This asymmetry enabled Kharkiv defense. Defenders maximized urban advantages. Made every Russian advance catastrophically expensive. Geography said Kharkiv vulnerable. Urban warfare said Kharkiv defensible. Urban warfare correct. Proved through 80 days resistance. Local knowledge multiplier. Defenders lived in Kharkiv. Knew every street.
Every building, every basement, every route, lifetime knowledge. Russian forces had maps, reconnaissance, intelligence. Not enough. Can't compete with living somewhere. Defenders used knowledge constantly. Ambushes positioned perfectly. Withdrawals executed safely. Reinforcements routed optimally. Local knowledge multiplied effectiveness. Made several thousand fight like tens of thousands. Against 30,000 attackers. Knowledge compensated for numbers.
Terrain compensated for geography. Determination compensated for everything else. Civilian resilience factor. Population mostly stayed. Despite danger. Despite bombardment. Despite everything. This mattered. Civilians provided intelligence. Supported defenders. Maintained morale. Their presence motivated defenders absolutely. Fighting for occupied city different from fighting for populated city. Defending homes. Protecting families. Guarding neighbors. This motivation is unquantifiable. Unbeatable. Russian forces fought professionally. Ukrainian defenders fought desperately. For everything. Gap was decisive. Kharkiv held partially because population stayed. Endured. Supported. Contributed. Heroes all. Strategic significance of holding. Kharkiv's defense mattered beyond city itself. Tied down 30,000 plus Russian troops. For 80 days. Troops needed elsewhere. Kiev offensive. Donbass offensive. Everywhere. Stuck at Kharkiv. Achieving nothing. This mattered strategically. Additionally, moral victory. City 40 kilometers from border held. Against overwhelming force. Proved Russian military beatable. Proved Ukrainian resistance possible. Proved predictions wrong. Strategic impact enormous. Beyond tactical defense. Beyond single city. Kharkiv holding changed war's trajectory. Proved Ukraine could survive. Resist. Eventually win. All from one city. Holding impossibly. Against everything. 3 questions from the beginning. Time to answer them. How did City 40 kilometers from border survive 80 days? Urban warfare primarily. Defenders exploited urban environment perfectly. Every advantage maximized. Local knowledge used constantly. Made proximity to border irrelevant. Urban warfare negated geographic disadvantage. Made numbers less decisive. Made terrain favor defenders. Kharkiv survived because urban warfare done correctly is nearly unstoppable. When defenders determined. When population supports. When terrain exploited expertly. All present at Kharkiv. Combined enabled impossible defense. Against geography. Against numbers. Against everything. What advantages enabled impossible defense? 3 primary. Urban terrain negated Russian military advantages. Made every advance costly. Second, local knowledge. Defenders knew terrain intimately. Used constantly. Third, determination. Defending homes. Families. City. Everything. Motivation absolute. These advantages combined. Overcame geography. Overcame numbers. Overcame predictions. Enabled defense everyone thought impossible. Kharkiv proved possible. Through exploiting advantages. Through refusing to surrender. Through 80 days fighting. Successfully. What does Kharkiv reveal about modern urban warfare? That geography matters less than terrain in urban warfare. That proximity to enemy territory is meaningless against urban defense done correctly. That defender determination multiplies capability enormously. That local knowledge compensates for numerical disadvantage. That urban warfare remains defender favorable when defenders competent and motivated. That predictions based on geography and numbers miss urban warfare's reality. Kharkiv proved all this. Held 80 days, 40 kilometers from border, against 30,000 plus attackers. Through urban warfare. Through determination. Through expertise. Modern urban warfare's reality. Proven conclusively. At Kharkiv. The lesson from Kharkiv is that in modern urban warfare, Determination and terrain knowledge overcome geography and numbers. City should have fallen. 40 kilometers from enemy border. Surrounded 3 sides. Against overwhelming force. Every prediction said impossible. Defense said possible. Proved correct. Through urban warfare's advantages. Through local knowledge. Through desperate determination. Kharkiv teaches that modern militaries shouldn't assume cities near borders are indefensible. Urban warfare changes calculations. Makes defense possible. Requires proper execution. Kharkiv defenders executed perfectly. 80 days resistance. Against impossible odds. Never captured. Never surrendered. Eventually counterattacked successfully. Geography overcome. Numbers overcome. Predictions wrong. Reality proved different. Through urban warfare. Through determination. Through refusing to accept inevitable. This lesson applies universally. Cities near borders can be defended. Urban warfare enables this. Requires competent defenders. Determined population. Proper tactics. Kharkiv had all 3. Demonstrated successfully. 80 days. Against everything. Teaching permanently. Urban warfare works. Geography matters less. Determination matters most. This is MilFront. We analyze battles that define wars. Kharkiv defense defined urban warfare's power. City 40 kilometers from enemy border held 80 days. Against 30,000 plus attackers. Against geographic impossibility or against numerical disadvantage. Through urban warfare. Through local knowledge. Through determination absolute. Defenders used every advantage. Made every Russian advance catastrophically expensive. Population stayed. Endured. Supported. Contributed. Together. Impossible defense. Successful resistance. Strategic victory. Kharkiv mattered beyond itself. Tied down Russian forces. Proved resistance possible. Changed war's trajectory. All from defending. From refusing to surrender. From 80 days fighting. Against everything. Geography said impossible. Urban warfare said possible. Determination made real. Kharkiv held. Russian forces withdrew. City liberated effectively. Never captured. Never surrendered. Proved modern urban warfare's reality. Defenders with terrain knowledge and desperate motivation can hold against overwhelming odds. When urban warfare done correctly. Kharkiv done correctly. Perfectly. Successfully. Teaching lessons. About urban warfare. About determination. About geography's limits. About numbers insufficiency. About modern warfare's reality. Where cities near borders aren't automatically vulnerable. Urban warfare protects. When done correctly. Kharkiv demonstrated. 80 days. Conclusively. Permanently. Subscribe to MilFront. Because understanding modern warfare requires understanding Kharkiv's lessons. Geography matters less in urban warfare. City 40 kilometers from border held 80 days. Urban terrain negated geographic disadvantage. Local knowledge compensated for numbers. Determination overcame predictions. Kharkiv proves modern urban defense works. When defenders exploit terrain. When population supports. When determination sustains. Russian forces 30,000 plus couldn't capture city. Urban warfare prevented. Made every advance costly. Made capture impossible. Made withdrawal necessary. Modern warfare's reality. Cities near borders can be defended successfully. Urban warfare enables this. Requires competence. Kharkiv defenders competent. Requires determination. Kharkiv defenders determined. Requires population support. Kharkiv population heroic. All combined. Enabled impossible. 80 days defense. Against overwhelming odds. Near enemy border. Successfully. Teaching universally. Urban warfare changes calculations. Makes defense possible. Requires proper execution. Study Kharkiv. Learn lessons. Apply universally.
Modern urban warfare favors determined defenders, regardless of geography, regardless of numbers. When done correctly, Kharkiv done correctly, proved conclusively, 80 days, second largest city, never fell, against everything, through urban warfare, through determination.
Through refusing inevitable, Kharkiv stands, teaching permanently about modern warfare, about urban defense, about determination's power, about geography's limits, about prediction's fallibility, about reality's difference. Study this, learn this, remember this. Kharkiv held, against impossible odds, through urban warfare, successfully, permanently, conclusively, 80 days, 40 kilometers from border, 30,000 plus attackers, second largest city, never captured, predictions wrong, geography overcome, numbers insufficient, urban warfare decisive, determination absolute, population heroic, defenders excellent, result, impossible defense, successful resistance, strategic victory, Kharkiv held, through everything, teaching everything, about modern urban warfare, about defender advantages, about terrain's power, about knowledge's value, about determination's decisiveness, all proven, through 80 days, against impossible odds, near enemy border, successfully defending, never surrendering, eventually counterattacking, liberating, winning, against predictions, against geography, against numbers, against everything.